Get that sick child out of first class. He doesn't belong here." Those words echoed to the airplane cabin, and every passenger within earshot froze in shock. But what happened next? Let's just say that entitled woman picked the wrong flight, the wrong child, and definitely the wrong pilot to mess with. This is a story of how one mother's worst travel nightmare turned into a moment of justice at 35,000 feet. And trust me, you'll want to hear every single detail. It started on a rainy Tuesday morning at Skyline International Airport. Jessica Martinez stood at gate 27, clutching her 8-year-old son Tommy's hand a little tighter than usual. Tommy had been diagnosed with leukemia 6 months earlier, and today they were flying across the country to see a specialist at a renowned children's hospital, a trip that represented their best hope for a treatment that might save his life. Jessica had spent the last 3 months fundraising, working double shifts, and saving every penny to afford this consultation. The flights alone had drained most of her savings. But then, 3 days before their departure, something incredible happened. Jessica received a call from the airline. A kind stranger who had heard about Tommy's story through a local news feature had used their airline miles to upgrade Tommy to first class, reasoning that a sick child deserved to travel in comfort. Jessica had cried on the phone, overwhelmed by this unexpected generosity. She'd be sitting in economy, but knowing Tommy would be comfortable with more space and attention from the flight crew made all the difference. As they approached the gate, Tommy looked up at his mom with tired eyes. "Mom, are you sure it's okay that I'm sitting up front without you?" His small hand squeezed hers. Jessica knelt down to his level, brushing his hair back gently. "Sweetheart, it's going to be fine. You deserve this. The flight attendants will take great care of you, and I'm just a few rows back if you need me. Plus, you'll have so much more room to rest." Tommy nodded, trying to be brave despite his pale complexion and the medical alert bracelet that hung loosely on his thin wrist. Boarding began, and Jessica walked Tommy down the jet bridge, her heart both heavy and grateful. As they entered the aircraft, Flight Attendant Sarah Chin greeted them warmly. "You must be Tommy. We've been expecting you. Come on, let me show you to your seat." Sarah's genuine kindness was evident as she guided Tommy to seat 2A, a wide beige leather seat by the window. She helped him stow his small blue dinosaur backpack and brought him a blanket. "If you need anything at all, honey, you just press this button, okay?" Tommy nodded shyly, and Jessica gave him one more hug before reluctantly heading back to her economy seat in row 24. She looked back twice, watching Sarah fuss over Tommy, making sure he was comfortable. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to Rayan Review 2.0 for more incredible stories. Everything seemed perfect until Patricia Westfield boarded the plane. Patricia was exactly the type of passenger flight crews dreaded, entitled, loud, and absolutely convinced that the world revolved around her schedule and preferences. She was dressed in an expensive burgundy silk blouse and black tailored trousers, designer tote bags swinging from her shoulder, her face set in a permanent expression of dissatisfaction. She had paid full price for her first-class ticket, and she expected perfection. As Patricia made her way down the aisle, she stopped abruptly at row 2, staring at Tommy with barely concealed disgust. Tommy, exhausted from the early morning and his treatment, had his eyes closed, resting against the window. Patricia's assigned seat was 2B, right next to him. She stood in the aisle, blocking other passengers, and called out loudly, "Excuse me, flight attendant. There seems to be some mistake here." Sarah hurried over with a professional smile. "Yes, ma'am? How can I help you?" Patricia gestured dramatically toward Tommy. "This child is in first class. Surely there's been an error. Children don't belong in first class, especially not one who looks." She wrinkled her nose. "Unwell, I paid a premium for this seat, and I expect a premium experience, which does not include sitting next to a sick child." The cabin went silent. Other first-class passengers looked up from their phones and newspapers, sensing drama. Sarah's smile tightened, but she remained professional. "Ma'am, this young passenger has a confirmed first-class ticket. There's no error." Patricia's voice rose. "I don't care about his ticket. Look at him, he's clearly ill. This is a health hazard. I demand you move him to economy immediately, or move me to a different seat away from him." Tommy's eyes fluttered open, and the fear and hurt on his small face was heartbreaking. He'd heard every word. Sarah knelt beside him quickly, whispering, "Don't worry, sweetie. You're not going anywhere." Then she stood and faced Patricia with professional firmness. "Ma'am, I can assure you this passenger poses no health risk to you. He has every right to be here." Every right. Patricia's face was turning red now. "I have rights too. I have the right to a comfortable flight without worrying about catching whatever disease that child has. This is unacceptable. I want to speak to whoever's in charge right now." Her voice carried throughout the entire first-class cabin and into the forward galley. In economy, Jessica heard the commotion. Her mother's instinct kicked in immediately, and she unbuckled her seatbelt, rushing forward. When she reached first class, the scene before her made her blood boil. Patricia standing over her son, pointing at him like he was contaminated, while Tommy shrank back in his seat, tears welling in his eyes. "What's going on here?" Jessica demanded, moving to Tommy's side and putting a protective arm around him. Patricia turned her fury on Jessica. "Oh, wonderful, the mother. Let me guess. You couldn't afford a first-class ticket yourself, so you scammed some charity case upgrade for your sick kid? Well, I'm not sitting next to him. He needs to be moved. Now! If you're enjoying this, hit that like button right now." Jessica's hands were shaking, but her voice was steel. "My son has cancer. He's 8 years old, and he's traveling to see a specialist who might save his life. Someone kind enough upgraded him because he deserves comfort on this difficult journey. He has every right to be here, and you have no right to speak to him or about him this way." Patricia scoffed. "Cancer? Oh, please. Everyone has a sob story these days. That doesn't give him the right to ruin my flight. I paid $3,000 for this seat, and someone paid with their heart." Jessica shot back. "My son is staying in this seat." The standoff was reaching a breaking point. Other passengers began murmuring, some in support Jessica, others looking uncomfortable. Patricia pulled out her phone. "Fine. I'm calling the airline's customer service. I'll have you both removed from this flight. We'll see who has more rights, a paying customer or some charity case." That's when a calm, authoritative voice cut through the chaos. "Is there a problem here?" Everyone turned to see Captain David Richards standing in the first-class cabin. At 48, with his neat salt and pepper hair and crisp Navy pilot's uniform complete with gold stripes on the sleeves, he exuded natural authority. He'd been doing his pre-flight walkthrough when he heard the disturbance. Sarah quickly briefed him on the situation. Speaking quietly but clearly, Captain Richards listened, his expression growing more serious. Then he looked at Tommy, who was now crying silently, and at Jessica, who was fighting back her own tears while trying to comfort her son. Finally, he turned to Patricia. "Ma'am, I'm Captain Richards, and I'm in command of this aircraft. I understand your concerns about your seating arrangement." Patricia's eyes lit up, clearly assuming the captain would side with the paying customer. "Yes, finally, someone with sense. This child is sick and shouldn't be in first class. I need him moved immediately, or I want a full refund and a different flight." Captain Richards nodded slowly. "I see. Let me ask you something. Do you have a medical degree?" Patricia blinked, confused. "What? No, of course not." "What is that?" "Because," the captain continued calmly, "unless you have a medical degree, you're not qualified to determine whether this passenger poses any health risk. My crew has confirmed this young man's ticket is valid, and he poses no danger to you or any other passenger. Leukemia is not contagious, ma'am." Patricia's face flushed. "That's not the point. The point is I paid for a premium experience, and you'll receive one," Captain Richards interrupted firmly, "as long as you behave in a manner consistent with our passenger conduct policy. However, what I've witnessed in the last few minutes, harassing a minor, demanding special treatment at the expense of another passenger, and causing a disturbance that's delaying this flight, those are violations of our policies." The cabin was now completely silent. Every passenger was watching. Patricia's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Are you threatening me?" "I'm informing you," the captain said evenly. "You have two choices. Choice one, You return to your assigned seat, treat your fellow passengers with respect, and we continue this flight as scheduled. Choice 2. I remove you from this aircraft for disruptive behavior, and you can explain to the airline why you were denied boarding. Patricia's eyes widened in disbelief. You can't do that. I'm a Diamond Elite member. I've flown with this airline for 15 years. I'll have your job. I'll sue this airline. Do you know who my husband is? Captain Richards remained unmoved. Ma'am, I don't care if you're the CEO of the airline. On this aircraft, safety and respect are my priorities. You've demonstrated neither. So I'll ask you one more time. Will you take your seat and conduct yourself appropriately, or do I need to call security? Share this video to support Rayan Review 2.0. Let's spread this amazing story. Patricia looked around desperately, expecting support from other passengers. Instead, she found a cabin full of people staring at her with expressions ranging from disgust to satisfaction. One businessman, in row, one even gave Captain Richards a subtle thumbs up. Realizing she was defeated, Patricia grabbed her designer tote bag roughly. Fine, I'll sit down. But you haven't heard the last of this. I'm filing a formal complaint the moment we land. That's your right, Captain Richards acknowledged. Then he turned to Tommy, his stern expression softening immediately. He crouched down to the boy's eye level. Hey there, buddy. What's your name? To me, the boy whispered, wiping his tears. Well, Tommy, I'm Captain Richards, and I'm going to be flying this plane today. I heard you're going to see some doctors who are going to help you feel better. Tommy nodded, still sniffling. Captain Richards smiled warmly. That's great. And you know what? You've got the best seat in first class. You can see the wing from there. If you look out during takeoff, it's really cool. Have you ever flown before? Only once, Tommy said quietly, when I wasn't sick yet. Well, this flight is going to be better, the captain promised. And if you want, after we reach cruising altitude, I can have someone bring you up to see the cockpit. Would you like that? Tommy's eyes lit up for the first time since boarding. Really? I can see where you fly the plane? Absolutely. It's pretty cool up there. We've got about 1 million buttons and switches. The captain stood and addressed Jessica. Ma'am, I apologize for what you and your son experienced. That should never have happened. Please know that you're both welcome on this flight, and on any flight with our airline. Jessica's tears finally spilled over, but they were tears of relief and gratitude. Thank you. Thank you so much. You don't know what this means. Captain Richards gave her shoulder a gentle, reassuring pat. I have a son, too. I know exactly what it means. Then he turned back to Patricia, who had sullenly taken her seat as far away from Tommy as she could press herself. Ma'am, just to be clear, one more outburst, one more comment toward this child or his mother, and we will be returning to the gate. Understood? Patricia nodded stiffly, her face still red with humiliation. The captain made his way back to the cockpit, and the flight finally prepared for departure. As promised, about 40 minutes into the flight, after the seatbelt sign turned off, Sarah came to get Tommy. Ready for your cockpit tour? She asked with a warm smile. Tommy's face glowed with excitement as Jessica helped him unbuckle. Sarah led him toward the front of the plane, and as they passed Patricia's seat, Tommy paused. In a small but clear voice, he said, I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable, ma'am. I hope you have a nice flight. The simple grace of that moment, a sick 8-year-old apologizing to the woman who tried to have him removed, hung in the air like a rebuke more powerful than any words. Patricia said nothing, staring fixedly at her magazine, but several passengers nearby looked at her with such judgment that she seemed to shrink into her seat. Want to hear the most compelling stories every week? Subscribe to Rayan Review 2.0 and never miss out. In the cockpit, Captain Richard showed Tommy all the instruments, let him sit in the first officer's seat, and even gave him a pair of pilot wings to pin on his hoodie. You're an honorary co-pilot now, the captain told him. Tommy beamed, looking healthier and happier than he had in months. When they landed 3 hours later, something remarkable happened. As passengers were deplaning, many of them stopped to talk to Jessica. A businessman pressed his business card into her hand with a note that he'd be donating to Tommy's treatment fund. An elderly couple hug her and promise to pray for Tommy's recovery. A young woman who worked in pharmaceutical research gave Jessica information about clinical trials that might help. Even the crew came together. Captain Richards personally walked Jessica and Tommy off the plane, carrying Tommy's backpack for him. At the gate, he handed Jessica an envelope. "This is from me and my crew. It's not much, but we want to help with Tommy's medical expenses." Inside was a collection of cash and checks totaling over $2,000. Contributions from a captain, the flight attendants, and even some of the cockpit crew. Jessica couldn't speak through her tears, so she just hugged the captain while Tommy clung to both of them. As for Patricia, she deplaned quickly, head down, avoiding eye contact with everyone. But the story doesn't end there. The next week, Jessica received a call from the airline's corporate office. A passenger, they wouldn't say who, had filed a formal complaint about Patricia's behavior. The airline reviewed the incident, including statements from crew and passengers, and made a decision. Patricia Westfield's Diamond Elite status was revoked. She was banned from the airline for 1 year and required complete sensitivity training before being allowed to book future flights. The airline also issued a public statement on social media about the incident without naming names, emphasizing their zero-tolerance policy for discrimination and harassment of passengers, especially children and those with medical conditions. The post went viral, with thousands of people sharing their own stories of discrimination while traveling. But here's the beautiful twist that nobody saw coming. That businessman who'd given Jessica his card, he owned a medical technology company. After learning more about Tommy's case, he connected Jessica with researchers at his company who were developing an experimental treatment. Through a combination of his connections, the money raised from the flight, and the overwhelming community support that followed when the story hit the news, Tommy was able to access cutting-edge treatment that his family never could have afforded. 6 months later, Tommy was in remission. Jessica sent Captain Richards a photo of Tommy at his 9th birthday party, healthy and happy, wearing his honorary pilot wings. The captain kept that photo in his cockpit for the rest of his career. He later told a journalist, "People ask me what the most important thing I've ever done in aviation was. They expect me to talk about emergency landings or technical challenges. But the truth is, the most important thing I ever did was stand up for a sick child and remind everyone on that plane that kindness costs nothing and cruelty has consequences." The story spread far beyond that single flight. Other airlines implemented stricter policies against passenger harassment. Captain Richards was honored by a children's cancer charity for his advocacy, and countless parents of sick children reached out to Jessica to thank her for standing up for her son and showing them they weren't alone. Thanks for watching Rayan Review 2.0, where every story has a twist. Like, share, and subscribe for more drama, inspiration, and real-life tales. Here's what we should all take away from this incredible story. The next time you're tempted to judge someone based on their appearance, their circumstances, or what you think they deserve, remember Tommy. Remember that the child sitting next to you might be fighting battles you know nothing about. Remember that the struggling mother in economy might be sacrificing everything for her child's health. And remember that kindness, real, genuine kindness, has the power to change lives. Patricia Westfield learned that day that money can buy a first-class ticket, but it can't buy class. She learned that status and entitlement mean nothing when you lack basic human decency. And she learned that when you try to push down someone who's already struggling, sometimes the universe has a way of pushing back. Captain David Richards, on the other hand, proved that true authority isn't about power. It's about using your position to protect those who can't protect themselves. He showed that doing the right thing, even when it's uncomfortable or might cause conflict, is always worth it. And Tommy learned that even when the world seems cruel, there are still heroes out there, pilots and strangers and communities of good people who will stand up and say, "Not on my watch. This child matters. This child belongs. This child deserves dignity and respect." So the next time you fly, and you see a child in first class or a family that looks like they're struggling or someone who seems out of place, remember this story. Choose to be the captain, not the Karen. Choose to be the passenger who offers help, not the one who demands special treatment. Choose kindness over entitlement, compassion over comfort, and humanity over everything else. Because at the end of the day, We're all just passengers on this journey together. And the only thing that really matters is how we treat each other along the way. That's a lesson from 35,000 feet, and it's one we should all carry with us, whether we're on the ground or in the sky.